It's still publishing. Takes a few seconds to publish. There you go. We get the notification. This is us live.
Okay.
So this is the chat right here.
Okay.
Say, namaste. And it shows up. Someone else can type in their question, and then we can have it here. Essentially, this one.
So if I see that, then I can recognize it and
you
give
would
an
know
answer.
the name. For example, the chat was in the previous, the last class that we had, someone asked a question.
Okay.
Didn't see it until much later.
Okay.
Essentially, you can see it, and then towards the end of the class,
When we have the question answer session.
You can ask them something. Only thing you need to just kind of monitor it. It's there, so you can get
Now,
used to
would this be needed to be used by anyone else?
No, we can actually kind of, we can actually close this one. Well, it'll continue with it. We're not going to close it, but we'll say open YouTube. I'll show it to you here. So this is the live thing.
I see.
So the text will, the question comes here. Right?
See it right there.
Okay.
You see it?
Okay.
So this is what I was thinking.
Is this a new feature? Or?
Yeah, chat they started a few months ago, several months ago. So we can just have a stand like this, and then we can continue.
Yeah.
So this is we already do the YouTube, so we can just have an additional feature instead of going with another software and other systems and stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we don't have to buy anything.
We don't have to buy it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Even if it's beta.
So we can try this.
We can try it and see how it works out. Okay, that's good. Maybe we'll do it from next time on.
Yeah.
I'll announce it.
Yeah.
And then when I come.
Well, you can say a format like after you ask a question, please write your name so that you know.
Well, name automatically comes.
It comes. It'll like my name came because when you have YouTube account, so there are 4 people online right now.
Okay.
I mean, one maybe one of these, one of us, but essentially, 2 other people are there. So if they have a question, they can type it in, and then you can respond to it.
Can you expand it or not?
Yeah. So I don't know about that. We have to figure that out.
Let's see if I.
Yeah. I think YouTube screen is.
This is okay. I can read it.
This is better, isn't it? Or you have to raise this.
No, it's the
No,
same
then
size.
it comes up with some.
Will you on your iPad, the YouTube will be more bigger, am I right?
I have the same Samsung. Maybe it will be bigger.
Your size?
I have it.
Maybe we can increase the font in the background. Once the system font can be bigger, maybe.
Okay.
You can have to play.
I see.
So something like this, I think, is useful.
This is close enough, then I can.
Yeah, if you just have a stand.
Yeah.
So you can just
Not this one, is it?
Yeah, this is the one. But it's not set up
For YouTube, for the
YouTube. It hasn't been.
Yeah, we can set it up. I don't think it'll be a big difference, but we can set it in the background.
But it is not very clear, right?
Oh, those are big. Yeah.
No, there you go. We already have a stand right there. So let's see if we can do this.
This
We're almost time, so
Yeah.
you want to do this for later? Or?
Yeah, I think let's do it later. That'd be good.
Motivated by no, yeah.
Okay, shall we start? All right, let's start the second class. I just wanted to ask, are there some people who are not familiar with the opening prayer, which is Sahana Bhavatu? Can you please raise your hands if you're not familiar with it? Okay, looks like everybody is. So as you know, it has swaras, and so we should make sure that the accents on the swara are given. And you know, for quite frankly, I need to make sure that people who are not here, and many of the newer people are not here, they're coming in online. They may not know this, so let me kind of just verbalize the accents for everyone.
I'll put the mic on.
Ah, sorry. So we will start with the opening mantra, Shanti mantra, which is Savana Bhavatu, and we'll just maybe follow the accents on it. Om Sahana Bhavatu. No, why don't you just follow me just for today? Om Sahana Bhavatu. Sahana Bhavatu. Sahanau Bhunaktu. Sahanau Bhunaktu. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Tejasvinavadhitamastu. Tejasvinavadhitamastu. Ma vidvishavahai. Ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So in the rules of grammar on whenever we are chanting with the Visarga, so you have a choice. Either you can say Om Shanti, then, or you can do the Visarga half a Shakara. So it becomes Om Shanti Shanti, like that. For the last one, there is nothing following it, so that's a raised and with just the Visarga. So we usually use the half a Shanti, so it will become like that. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, like that. This is how it goes. And I think most of you already know that. Okay, so let's do this as we... is there anyone here that was not introduced on the camera who was last week? We should do that to make sure that everybody is introduced. Everybody was introduced? Okay, wow, good. I didn't introduce myself also, just for some of the newer people. Just a quick introduction to myself. I think all of you already know me. And so I really had, I would say four events that were quite significant in my life, other than the normal life and so on. And I would, you know, it's interesting, when I was growing up and I was already married and had a couple of children, at least one child at that time in early 60s, or not early 60s, but early 70s. But I was not a very happy person. Something was not quite right about the whole setup. And it was not that I was unhappy, but I was not as happy as others that I could see who were just enjoying the normal living in the life and so on. Something was not quite there yet. And I didn't know what it was, because I remember I had a colleague at IBM, a Russian colleague, Vitali, and he used to say that, you seem to have everything. We used to go for walks. This is in 66, 67, 68. And then he was saying, you have a good job, you've got a nice wife, and you have everything, so how come you're not as happy? I said, I have no idea. I have no idea. It should be. And in a way, I think that was a gift by Ishvara. I must say that, looking back, because I was not satisfied with what I was doing. There was something else, but I didn't know what else there was to do. But that hankering for looking for something really spurred me on. One thing that happened was that I would say this was one of a significant event in my life, is that because I was an engineer and a scientist and so on and so forth, and the empirical world as I saw that was everything for me. This is reality, this is how things are. And then I happened to read the autobiography of a yogi by Paramahansa. And that really shook me. And it shook me for the following reason. The tone of the book, the language used and so on, was very authentic sounding. He wasn't trying to exaggerate. And yet some of the things talked about where Sri Yukteswar was living for 500 years or 1,000 years or something, I said, this is amazing. So that kind of loosened my absolute sense of reality as it is. I said, there is something that I need to, but it didn't give me, Ishvara has really been very protective of me. It's not as though I would become a yogi. I could have done that. I could have just, later on I actually went to the birthplace, not the birthplace, but the place where Yogananda established in Encinitas. So I made a pilgrimage to it. I've been there 2 or 3 times, nothing very major. But so it didn't bowl me to a point where I would just follow the teachings. But it still shook me. That was one thing. And I would say that the second big event was when I met Swami Chinmayananji for the second time. I had heard him in Bombay when I was an engineering student visiting. I was working there actually for my summer and visiting my aunt, living with her for about 3 months. And she pointed out there's a Swami talking on a big, with a big area of about 10,000 people and so on and so forth in a park. Yes, that's the word I was looking for, in a park. And I didn't really hear much, neither did I understand. But the name struck with me, Swami Chinmayanand. So in 1973, I saw a commercial in I think the radio, and also an ad in the San Jose Mercury saying Swami Chinmayanand will be talking in San Francisco on Gita Yajna. This was in June of 1973. And something came over me and I said, I'd like to, this is the same person that I'd seen. So I went to the talks, and I think by the second day, a little bit of credit to me also, I could see there is something extraordinary here, that there is something called the self, which is not known. And Swamiji, he was talking about the 7th chapter, and that was an amazing, that was a big event. I said, this is what I was really looking for. And so I continued going to San Francisco for I think either 7 or 10 days. And then I became very devoted to Swami Chinmayanand, arranged some of the talks and so on, from 73 to 74 and 75. And then came the third big event in my life where, again, Ishvara just somehow or the other make all these things happen. Swami Chinmayanand could not come because his passport was not returned in time by Sanjay Gandhi under the emergency rule. And so he could not come. And so we were initially disappointed, but he sent Swami Dayanandji instead. And I had met Swami Dayanand at the Powai ashram a year before that. I still remember T.T. Krishnamachari was assassinated that day. So he was sitting there reading a newspaper. And my wife and I, and we were just, because we were followers of Swami Chinmayanand. So he looked up and he said, yes, can I help you? So we said, we are from California and we are visiting and so on and so forth. He says, let me have a person who is from California take you around. So this was this woman called Radha, Carol Whitfield. And so she and I talked for a while, and she left me with some interesting thoughts. She said, if you really want to study seriously, this is the person who was sitting there. You should somehow study with him, Swami Dayanand. He is the real teacher in the Chinmaya mission. He was teaching all the brahmacharis in the Chinmaya mission. So I said, okay, fine, but how am I going to come to Powai? I'm married and working for IBM, and I'm not going to. So I said, thank you very much. Well, lo and behold, when Swami Chinmayanand could not come, he sent Swami Dayanand instead. And so in the Humboldt College in 1976, I saw him. And that was the end of my search. His logic, his personality, and his answering questions and removing doubts and so on. And more than anything else, what really convinced me to then finally give up my job by that time I was working for HP, and I convinced my wife and my parents and so on to allow me to take off 2.5 years from HP and follow Swami Dayanandji at the ashram in Piercy in 1979 to 82. And the reason that I was convinced of that is that Swami Dayanand by that time had convinced me, has shown me that this whole topic can be learned systematically. Just like, you learn chemistry or law or medicine. You start with the beginning, you have to get into some depth, not apparent in the middle, but you have to build a... So this finally got to me. So I said, I have to really learn this. And so anyway, he accepted me as a student, and my wife, so I'm so grateful to her. She also agreed reluctantly, excuse me, but she also moved in with the 2 kids by that time, and so we lived with the ashram for 2.5 years. And so went through the entire spectrum of training of what is called Prasthana Treya, which is 10 major Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and the first 4 sutras of Brahma Sutra. This comprises the minimum unit of what is called a Vedantic course. So when I finished doing that, and that was so wonderful. So that was my event number 3. So if you were counting, reading Autobiography Yogi was number 1, meeting Swami Chinmayanand was number 2, and meeting Swami Dayanandji is number 3. Then about 10 years ago, I was introduced to the teaching of Swami Maheshanandji, which is my 4th and I think my final event shaping up my life. And the reason why that is so significant, the last one, is because I spent 2.5 years with Swamiji, and then a lot of the time in organizational, because he asked me to be the secretary of the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam, And he was hoping that I would move to the Gurukulam and become the manager of Sailorsburg, but I could not do that. I have a commitment to my wife and so on. So, but I was on the board of directors and I was very active with it. But I didn't have any time to study with him anymore, other than the 2.5 years. And it requires continued study with somebody. And also my Sanskrit was not that good that I could just be on my own and read 10 or 12 pages every day. I can read a couple of pages, you know. It's good enough to really understand the basics and so on. And so I didn't spend that much time with him until I discovered Swami Maheshananji, and he was introduced to me by Swami Viditatmananda. And what happened with me was two things. One is that his mother tongue is the same as mine, which is Hindi. And by that time, my skill in Sanskrit had become so good that he writes in highly Sanskritized Hindi. Every other word is Sanskrit. But the grammar is a lot easier. And so I could really read 20, 30 pages a day, not 30, but anyway, 15 to 20 pages a day. And plus, I think his knowledge and the vision of his is the same as Swami Dayanandji and Swami Chinmanand. There's no difference at all. The understanding, the explanation, and so on. So it was very, very consistent, even though his sampradaya is Giri sampradaya, not the Saraswati sampradaya, but it is very close. It's almost the same. And but then I think I became a student at my own home with a thorough understanding, and I think he has about 60, 70 books, and I think I've read every one of them, and several of them many times over. And I consider him to be as influential in my life as the other two, Swami Chinmanandji and Swami Dayanand. And that study continues on in Hindi, in Sanskrit, Sanskritized Hindi. And if I had more time, I would really translate some of his books. I've never met him. He passed away before I had a chance to really get to know him. But his language speaks to me very well. And I'm in touch with his teachings every day. This is what I do in the morning. Swami Dayanand's teachings are with me all the time. I don't have to, I was with him for so long. But another dimension of the teaching, with different examples, different references. Swami Maheshananji's knowledge of Shastra is superb, absolutely phenomenal. And anyway, that's an introduction to, and I would say the fifth important event in my life was to start teaching. Because this has been, you don't understand how much you helped me, because when I prepare for it and I structure my thoughts and so on, you may not get as much out of it, but I get a lot out of it. And so to teach and to study, and our lives is the same. I'm also a householder. I have the same issues as you do. And so in that sense, it's not as though I'm above you or anything like that. I just got to start a little earlier than many of you, that's all. But other than that, we communicate on a similar level. Anyway, this is a long introduction, but anyway, that's where I am. So let's do this. I have a little bit of more summary to give you about the form of Sri Dakshinamurti. Okay, so and then we'll be done with it. So, as we have seen in the last class, that there are 3 stages of learning. Okay, so the first stage is kind of an introduction to who is Dakshinamurti, the form of the Dakshinamurti. So this is the first stage. Kind of like learning a new language. What is the language? And so on. This is number 1. The second one is the devotion to understand the vastu, which is what is called dhyanam. So dhyanam is the second stage where you appreciate the enormity of this person. And I think a good example would be, I often think about it this way, is that if somebody like Einstein, and I'm sure there are similar physicists today, but let's say somebody like Einstein was alive and visiting the Bay Area. So let's take an example of that. If that happens, then, so suppose he was being introduced by someone. Supposing he's visiting a major institution like Stanford or Berkeley or something like that. And he gives a big talk and even some classes. And so someone is asked to introduce him. And it's very unlikely that people who are being asked to introduce him will not know anything about him, but pretend that a person doesn't know. Supposing it could even be, the governor of California, who is a big person, but he doesn't know the science of Einstein. And he will be asked to introduce Einstein. So the first thing he would do is to study who Einstein is, and here it's not an exact parallel with Dakshinamurti. The second and the third are an exact parallel, but the first one is not. So what Einstein looks like, the form of it, and so on and so forth. So this is the first one, and this is what we are doing. We're just finishing up from last week. And the second stage is to understand what this person called Einstein has actually achieved, how highly regarded he is, and the achievements and the accolades, how everybody just loves him and respects him. And so if the person has to introduce the person like Einstein, like a governor, then he would read up. He will say that, he's such and such, he's the Nobel Prize type of a person. And so the Mahima, what is called the Mahima means the grandeur of the person, he should read up. And so as part of the introduction, he should say that I'm introducing Mr. Einstein, who has done the following things. And the more you know about it, the better off you will be in understanding what the person is doing. This is the number 2. This is called dhyanam. So this we will do today about Dakshinamurti. The third one is, if you were to, and supposing the governor has been asked to introduce Einstein, and all he does is welcomes everybody, and by showing up as the governor of California, he is showing his respect for because he cannot just do it for anyone. And then he can even actually understand a little bit about his Mahima. You can say, this is what he's accomplished, this is so impressive, I'm very happy that he came, and so on. And he probably understands some of the accolades. After that, he'd say, now, to give him the real introduction, I am handing over the mic to the chairman of the physics department at Berkeley, who has already won a couple of Nobel Prizes. I say this because I remember what an interesting thing. When I came to this country in 1964 for computer science at Berkeley, I got a job in the summertime at the Lawrence Radiation Lab in Berkeley. and some clerical work that I had to do and so on and so forth. But I was very happy that I got some money out of it because I had no money. And so my host, who was my boss, took me out to lunch to the cafeteria on the first day. And so we were taking our trays and so on and sitting down. And he said, by the way, you see that table there? I said, yes. And there were these older people all sitting there, not in coat and tie or anything. They were casual and so on. I said, yeah. He says, can I tell you something? I count 5 Nobel Prize winners on that table. And there's 9 of them that work here, and 4 of them are not here. These are the 5. And one of them actually became my advisor when I was doing a master's degree. Anyway, I'm going off the subject. But so if the person who is really going to introduce Einstein is one of those Nobel Prize winners, you know what will happen? That Nobel Prize winner who is introducing Einstein will not only be familiar with the accolades that he has won, but his actual work. What is the theory of relativity? What does he do? How does that work? He would have a very clear idea of that. So Einstein's work is not ordinary because the person has changed the whole trajectory of the human science. He has completely reversed Newton. And absolutely a marvelous person. And he understands him. So this is the third stage, which is, so the first stage is simply rupam, the second stage is dhyanam, and the third stage is jnanam, knowledge. And so he's not as just saying that, this is a great person because he won so many accolades and this, that, or the other. He praises him because he understands the mahima. See, this is what it is. So therefore, for us, we also have to go through the 3 stages of Dakshinamurti. Stotram means a praise. It's called stuti. So stuti and stotram are the same. And the stotram means a praise. So a praise would be where you at least recognize a form which is revered by the wise people of the earth. Because, supposing you show it to a child, the child will not know. Maybe even a young person may understand Hanuman, may understand Ganesha, but the Dakshinamurti, they'll say, what is this? I don't understand this. Even adults don't know it. So, if there is a person who has some reverence to Dakshinamurti, that itself is a big thing. Because you learn it from osmosis from others. If Swami Dayanandaji has decided to have this as the vigraha in his in ashrams, there must be something worth knowing. And so this is the first one, which is form, and we'll finish it off today. We've pretty much done that. Then what we will do is to briefly look at the second stage, which is dhyanam. So dhyana shlokas we will do. And that one has not touched jnana. That is simply says, the reason that I revere you, Ishvara, is because here is what this is what you're capable of doing. So may I actually get my mind into the dhyanam. So in the case of learning the Dakshinamurti Stotram, where dhyanam is important is before a study. See, right now, if you come in from outside, you've got 237 traffic and rain and cold, and so your mind is on a completely different thing. Then you now focus in on something which is Dakshinamurti. And so the other thoughts are gone, you just want to focus on that. Then you now not only focus on Dakshinamurti, but you now utter words of praise as a signal to your mind. Oh mind, please appreciate what this person is. Just appreciate. I don't want you to, this is just getting ready for understanding. This is just an appreciation. Be devoted. So devotion. So this is the second stage. And then this is why before each class, dhyana shloka should be uttered. When I do the study in the morning, I make it a point to do dhyana shloka, and I also do the complete Dakshinamurti Stotram as well, which I'll explain in a minute. And believe it or not, it's just amazing that my mind, after a while, really is now receptive to what my study would mean. It is removed. I've already had a cup of coffee or a tea or something, and I sit down and I then gather my mind and I go through, you might call a ritual, but a meaningful ritual of doing dhyanam, so that my entire mental capability is now ready for the more subtle aspects of the vidya. This is the meaning for dhyana shlokas. So that's what that is. So we will do that in just 1 minute. I'll explain the dhyana shlokas. And then, of course, when we do the study, that will mean the third one, which is the fodder, the material for the understanding of what the Dakshinamurti is. Just like the understanding of what the theory of relativity is. Then if you do that, I made quite a bit of an attempt to understand Einstein's theory of relativity. And so really, by every time I appreciate what he has done, I also automatically praise him. So I don't have to make a ritual out of it. He's a great scientist, a great avatar of the Lord, and it is done by an understanding of his work. So this is how the Dakshinamurti will be. Anyway, with those words, let us continue what we had started last week. So, as I had mentioned, Dakshinamurti is the form of Ishvara, form of Shiva, in the form of a teacher. Form of a teacher. So as I mentioned to you before, there could be a person who is just interacting with you. You're talking to that person, and so on and so forth. So you interact with that person. You can interact with that person as a non-teacher. But then, Swami Tattvavidananda had given a beautiful example. He was making the same point. He says, one time I was asked to, he was saying this, that one time he was asked to give a talk to an audience, which was there also to witness a dance performance by a connoisseur of dance, a very good dancer. And then either before or after that, Swami TV was going to also give a talk. And so before that, they were sitting down for a brief meal, and they were talking to each other and so on and so forth. And nobody had introduced the other person to Swamiji, and he was talking to him about, Hyderabad and how's traffic and how's weather and so on and so forth. And then the person said, Swamiji, I need to take your permission. I need to go and get ready. He was the dancer. And Swamiji said that he was sitting there with me, and he had not put all the makeup on and everything. And then all of a sudden, half hour later, he comes onto the stage and he gives a marvelous performance. And I had no idea that he was so skilled. He was just sitting there as an ordinary person. Anyway, what this example is that you can interact with a person without the skill and then interact with the person with the skill. So a person without being a teacher is Shiva, who is a blessing by itself. He is a Kalyana Gunam giver, but not a teacher. That form of Shiva is not as a teacher. But if you really want to understand the true glory of Ishvara, the true glory of yourself, because in Hinduism, the study of Ishvara is really the study of yourself. It is not as a separate person. That is just a start. The end point is to really understand that the Ishvara's glory is my glory. Why? Because you are inseparate from Ishvara. And so, as we were studying with we had an example of the Hanuman in the other class, that really you have enormous powers. But because we never invoke it, it looks like a small person. But if we understand it, really it is Ishvara shining through each one of you and I. So that is the understanding of Ishvara that we have to see. So therefore, Shiva as the final the final approach from me is there as a teacher. And the teaching is there is no difference between you and I. Jivatma and Paramatma are one and the same. The outside looks different, a room space looks different from total space, but it is really the same. And so therefore, the Shiva as a teacher is what is called Dakshinamurti. And we saw some of the reasons why it is called Dakshinamurti last week, so I won't repeat that. In doing so and in finalizing the form, there's a couple of things that I did not get a chance to mention. So one of them is that the form of Dakshinamurti is a human form sitting on a bull called Nandi. The significance of that is that Nandi represents Maya Shakti. So the Ishvara's entire Shrishti is sitting on with the help of, in other words, he is residing on the Maya. He's different. The Maya is just a Shakti of it. But nevertheless, the creation is with the help of the Maya Shakti, which is Nandi, the bull. So the Vahana for Ishvara is the Maya Shakti, which is in the form of this bull. This is number one. Then you will also notice, if you see, this is not very clear. By the way, one of our students, Vivian Karif from Paso Robles, asked this question on the email, and we are actually working on having some kind of a way for people to ask questions, and so Chandra is working on that, and when I come back from India we will have it all set up so that actually I will have an online set of questions that I could see, and then I can answer that. Because now we have, today I counted, we have 61 students in this course, and 29 are promising to be here online, and 32 are going to be offline in remote areas. I'm delighted to see that a person is tuning in from as far as Shreveport, Louisiana. So this lady, Achla Agarwal, she had met me in one of the Swami Viditatmananda's retreats. And so she was on our, AVC email list. And so she said, yeah, I'd like to attend that. So I was writing to her and saying, okay, I hope you can make it to the class. And she says, no, I can't. I'm in Shreveport. So anyway, so there are people around. And I think we need to make sure that we have a connection with all of them. And so we're working on having a question. Anyway, so one question asked was, why is the Vigraha black? You know, because in many times in India, you find ivory Vigrahas in white. And many times here also, many of the temples. And so I can say that the white Vigraha, the idol white color Vigraha, is not following the Shilpa Shastra accurately. Shilpa Shastra means the art and the science of making idols for worship. The idol should be made out of stone and preferably dark stone. And the reason for that is that a dark stone inside a temple where there is no light is very difficult to see. You need lots of light. So a dark stone represents the unknown Atma. It is there, but you don't see it. And then what happens is that the priest decorates the Vigraha with jewels in a way like a teacher decorates the student, the jiva, with saying, you don't understand how beautiful you are. You don't understand your mahima. Let me tell you this. You're okay by yourself. You're not as downcast. Don't be as downcast. So that is putting the jewels on the student, so to speak. Ultimately, however, the priest has to light a lamp and show the Vigraha. And so this is the teacher which says that this is lighting a lamp of knowledge. So this is what is called Shilpa Shastra. So the black one, which is not easily visible, is the right color for Dakshinamurti and for others. But then you can do anything you want to. You'll say, I want to make it look nice, so you do it with marbles and so on and so forth. But that is not the classical, traditional Shilpa Shastra. So you will find that in South India, and many times in North India also, the Vigraha is made out of dark stone. That's the reason for it. Anyway, so one last thing that I want to mention about the form is that the Dakshinamurti has one leg on a dwarf demon, and the name of the dwarf demon is Apasmara. Apasmara. And what it is this is an interesting thing to see. So the reason for this demon represents the emotional problems of a human being. Now, in this depiction of Dakshinamurti, please note that the Dakshinamurti has not killed the Apasmara. Not a dead one. He's alive. In fact, he's looking like this. I think if you look at the real ones, you'll find that the apasmara is kind of like he's being held down by the foot of Dakshinamurti, but he's still alive. What this represents is that until your complete knowledge takes place, please keep your emotions in check. Your emotions are likely to come up any minute. You cannot say, and this is what happens sometimes. You've been studying Vedanta for a while, and then you are upset about some things. And that upset, when you have been studying Vedanta, is even worse than when you were not studying Vedanta. Because now you throw the baby with the bathwater. You'll say, I've been studying. You actually blame me. I've been studying with Vijayji for the last 7 years. And I'm still as angry as ever. That means the whole thing doesn't make any sense. So you blame me, you blame our Shastra, you blame everything and so on. So the emotions can overtake you. And so all the Shastras say this, that until you are absolutely clear, there comes a point where even if anger arises, you will know clearly that is not me. That belongs to my mind. So we'll go over that in more detail. So there also the sting of the anger, I'm just taking anger as one of the things, any disappointments, any emotional issues, they don't have the sting anymore. You will see this. It will just be defanged. Until then, you have to keep it under control. So the Dakshinamurti, in the way it is, and by the way, the sitting Dakshinamurti is called the Medha Dakshinamurti. It is called Medha Dakshinamurti. Different. There is also a yogic posture. I think Swamiji had mentioned that here somewhere. There's 2 or 3 versions of that. Not on this. I think he had given it someplace. Oh yeah. No. There's another couple of forms of Dakshinamurti which are also there, but this one is called Medha Dakshinamurti, which is in the sitting posture. And one other thing, and then we are done with the form. I wanted to talk about that. What is that? Oh yes. So, Dakshinamurti is shown many times at the foot of the banyan tree. In fact, that will come in the Dhyana Shlokas, Vatataror Mule, in just 1 second. But just to talk about the form also, he is depicted as sitting at the foot of the banyan tree. So the banyan tree represents the samsara. And so if you look at the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Urdhvamulam adhashakam ashwatham prahuravyayam. Very famous first verse itself. So there in the 15th chapter, the Ishvara is depicted, the world, the Jagat is depicted as an upside down tree. And the root, which is the beginning of the samsara, like a root of the banyan tree is the beginning of the entire tree, is above you. Normally it is the root is down, but here it is upside down. And so that means that again the very birth of the samsara, the very beginning of it, comes from the Ishvara and the Maya Shakti of Ishvara. And so here Dakshinamurti is sitting at the root, again saying that yes, I am in control of it and everything will resolve into this root. So that is why the sitting of the Dakshinamurti under a banyan tree is also done. So with that, the first stage is now over. We've talked about all of the other forms already, and so that we can do. Now we can move on to the second stage, which is the Dhyana Shlokas. So I'm hoping that you have a copy of this Dhyana Shloka that I had given out to you, which was the Sanskritam first, and then the transliteration of the Sanskritam. Anybody that does not have it? For those of you that cannot pronounce that do not read Devanagari, so the transliteration is also given here. But other than that, you can just use, for those of you that know Devanagari, you can just pronounce that. So there are 6 Dhyana Shlokas. So let us first learn to chant, and then I'll explain the meaning of the Dhyana Shlokas. Okay? So what I will do is that each of the shlokas has 4 quarters, and I will first pronounce the half of the quarter, and you can repeat after me. Then the second half of the quarter, you can repeat after me. Then I will pronounce the entire quarter line, and you can repeat after me. So we will do that twice, then we will move on. So let's start with the first one. Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Varshistante Vasat Rishiganaihi Varshistante Vasat Rishiganaihi Avritam Brahmanistaihi Avritam Brahmanistaihi Varshistante Vasat Rishiganaihi Avritam Brahmanistaihi Varshistante Vasat Rishiganaihi Avritam Brahmanistaihi Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmudram Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmudram Anandarupam Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmudram Anandarupam Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmudram Anandarupam Swatma Ramam Mudita Vadnam Swatma Ramam Mudita Vadnam Dakshina Murtimide Swatma Ramam Mudita Vadnam Dakshina Murtimide Swatma Ramam Mudita Vadnam Dakshina Murtimide Vata Vitapi Samipe Vata Vitapi Samipe Bhume Bhage Nishannam Bhumi Bhage Nishannam Vata Vitapi Samipe Bhumi Bhage Nishannam Vata Vitapi Samipe Bhumi Bhage Nishannam Sakalamuni Jananam Sakalamuni Jananam Jnanadataram Arhat Jnanadataram Arhat Sakalamuni Jananam Jnanadataram Arhat Sakalamuni Janam Jnanadataram Arhat Tribhuvana Gurumisham Tribhuvana Gurumisham Dakshina Murti Devam Dakshina Murti Devam Tribhuvana Gurumisham Dakshina Murti Murtidevam Tribhuvanagurumisham Dakshinamurtidevam Jananamarna Dukkha Chedadaksham Namami Jananamarna Dukkha Chedadaksham Namami Chitram Vatataror Mule Vriddha Shishya Gurur Yuva Chitram Vatataror Mule Vriddha Shishya Gurur Yuva Chitram Vatataror Mule Vriddha Shishya Gurur Yuva Gurostu Maunam Vyakhyanam Shishyastu Chinna Samshayaha Gurostu Maunam Vyakhyanam Shishyastu Chinna Samshayaha Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Bhishaje Bhavaroginam Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Bhishaje Bhavaroginam Gurave Sarvalokanam Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Gurave Sarvalokanam Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavarthaya Shuddha Jnanaika Murtaye Om Namah Pranavarthaya Shuddha Jnanaika Murtaye Om Namah Pranavarthaya Shuddha Jnanaika Murtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Good, excellent. So now let us look at the meaning of these verses. And this you also have a copy of. Hopefully this was given to you in the Dakshinamurti Dhyana Shlokas. So you should have a copy of that. Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Varshistante Vasat Rishiganaihi Avritam Brahmanishtahi Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmudram Ananda Rupam on Ananda Murtim. Here I think it is given. So there's a difference here. We have to resolve that. Yeah, it said here it is Ananda Murtim. In this one, Ananda Rupam, is the same thing. Swatma Ramam Mudita Vadnam Dakshina Murtam Ide. So Dakshinamurti Ide means I bow to Dakshinamurti. So Ide. So this is a Atmanepada of Ide. I do. It's the same thing as Namaha. Namaha and Ide is exactly the same. Namami. And here, for example, Om Namah Shivaya. So when you say Om Namah Shivaya, so the same meaning Namaha. What is the meaning of Namaha? So Namaha means, and by the way, is the same verb for doing Namaste. When you say Namaste, Namahate becomes Namaste. A very beautiful greeting in India, Namaste. Same thing. What Namaste represents is that I am now paying attention to you. You were not there before and I didn't know you were coming or something, or now I see you and all my other thoughts have receded or should recede. I recede my other thoughts and make you the recipient of my thoughts. This is the meaning of Namaha. So in the very famous Panchakshari, Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. So Namaha means I give up my thoughts of samsara, my thoughts as a jiva. I give them up and focus my thoughts on Shiva. For the sake of my becoming the Shiva, Shivaya, for the purpose of seeing Shiva, Namaha. So here, there's a very, it is given in the Shastra also. So here, Namaha means Tyagartha. Namaha means Tyaga. So you see, normally when you say Namaha, Namaha means that you're bowing. And that can be one meaning. That is also another meaning. You are bowing, like the Japanese bow. The Japanese bow, it depends on how much they are bending. So if it is the other person is slightly better, you only do a little bit. If it is a big shot, then you almost double up completely. So this is one meaning of bowing. This is not the physical bowing that we are talking about here. The meaning of Namaha is Tyaga. I give up. So this is a beautiful greeting. Swami Dayanand used to say that, first of all, you don't touch anyone. So you keep your bugs with yourself, I keep my bugs with myself. We don't have to, if you are having a cold, then we don't have to, this is nice, wonderful. But more importantly, that means with a slight bow, with the open eyes, you're saying, okay, I was thinking of paying bills, this or the other, but now Namaste. That means my thoughts are now focused on you. Welcome. And so this is the real meaning of Namaha, Namaste. So here, this is the same thing, Dakshinamurtam Ide. I now focus on Dakshinamurti. What kind of Dakshinamurti is given in all these other lines? So, if you look at the English translation of this, so you can say salutations. So salutations here is not English translation is not as accurate. Salutations is okay, but really means Tyaga. How can you translate Tyaga? Means I give up everything else. I focus on Dakshinamurti. What kind of Dakshinamurti? Mauna Vyakhya Prakritita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam. whose exposition through silence awakens the knowledge of Brahman in the hearts of disciples. Whose exposition through silence awakens the knowledge of Brahma in the hearts of disciples. And so here, Mauna Vyakhya. Mauna Vyakhya is a, what is that term? It's when they're opposites of each other. What is it called? When there are two things that are opposite to each other?
Oxymoron.
Oxymoron, thank you. So Mauna Vyakhya, it looks like it's an oxymoron. Means that if you're talking and you're not talking. This is what is called Mauna Vyakhya. Vyakhya means to explain. Mauna means to keep quiet. How can you explain by keeping quiet? It is very appropriate here because the form of the Atma which is being explained is in the shape of silence. The very nature of the self is silence. And so when there is a good rapport between the teacher and the student, ultimately at the end of talking, there's a lot of talking ahead of time, but the real Vyakhya culminates in mutual silence. And you know, some of you may have recalled this from an earlier class. It was very interesting. So we will, when we were at the ashram, and we will have a morning class, and after each class there is satsang. That's the beauty of these ashrams, that you have a class where Swamiji is talking and he's explaining all the Sanskrit words, and hour and a half of intense people taking notes and so on. And then Swamiji retired to his own kutia, and my wife and I were very lucky because we were given a house right next to his kutia. So right next to it, which is now, I understand, been turned into a library for Swami Chinmayananda's work. But at that time it was our house. This is a small kutia. Our two kids were there, my wife and I, one bathroom and one bedroom. All four of us lived there for 2.5 years. Very beautiful. But right next to where Swamiji was. So we would just go to his satsangs all the time. And more, not only that, whenever special meals were cooked for him, we were always there to have the special meal along with Swamiji. So we got expert in South Indian food, even though we are from Punjab. But my wife really became very good in South Indian food, so much so that people will come for cooking. Anyway, we would be there next to Swamiji. And what will happen is, this is interesting thing. So when he goes to the satsang, about 80% of the people were full-time students. Because we were in classes for all day long. There were 3 classes plus this and Sanskrit, and you know how the ashram life is, very busy. But then they were visitors, visiting for a weekend or a day here or there. Not really full students. They have not, been following the curriculum and so on. So Swamiji would be giving a satsang. And usually what will happen is that Swamiji would be sitting there, maybe sipping a cup of coffee or tea, and quiet and smiling. And we'll all be sitting there quiet and smiling. This will go on for half hour. He'll be just saying, and we'll all be saying this. But the visitors would ask some questions. And they would, I think, break our silence. Swamiji, you were talking about, this I don't understand. So can you please talk a little bit about that? And all we wanted to say was, be quiet. Be quiet. Don't ask any questions. It's very clear to us. Very clear to us. But we were, of course, so Swamiji would say, well, you see, the thing is, it breaks the silence. But necessary. I still remember that. And this is not just once. This is the whole 2.5 years. Especially towards the end of the course, when some of the understanding became really more embedded in our minds. The beauty of really just closing your eyes. This is what is called Mauna Vyakya. So an exposition of the teacher. So here, just look at this. Look at this. This is interesting. Mauna. So let's finish this, and I'll recreate the scenery one more time. Mauna Vyakya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam. So the silence is not kind of like a bored silence. You are seeing Parabrahma in that silence. This is an enormously significant silence. Because you can be silent just not thinking of anything. No. So this is what it says, Mauna Vyakya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam. And in what kind of Varshishtante Vasat Rishiganaihi Avritam Brahmanishtai. So he says, who is himself youthful, Yuvanam, but is sitting surrounded by old and great sages who are absorbed in Brahman. Varshishtante vasat rishiganaihi avritam brahmanishtai. Avritam means they are covered. They are naturally understanding. They are naturally devoted to Brahmanishta. That happens when you're becoming, really you've been studying it and you can understand it and so on and so forth. But here the thing is, the same thing is given in verse number 3 also. So here the thing is that the teacher is very young, but the students are very old. What is the significance of this? This one should understand. The significance of this is the Atma, the self, for all of us, the same self that resides in each one of us. The meaning of the word you is timeless. It does not age. It's timeless. And so really the one who, and what really teaches is the teacher that represents the Atma. And so that is the meaning of the symbology of this, is that the Atma is ageless. Whereas the Jivas, you have no idea how old you are. It's a good thing that we change our bodies every 70, 80 years. Supposing you keep the same body, imagine your body to be 3 million years old. You sometimes find these, not only mummies, but you find these bones. And this is what remains of 1,000 years. And we are more than 1,000. We are like millions of years old. Amazing how old we really are. We look young, but we don't realize how old we really. This has been going on for ages. We just look at ourselves, look at our teacher, look at the world again and again. It's been going on for a long time. So that's what it's meant by Varshishtante Rishiganai. The Rishiganas are very old. Same thing is talked about here in number 3. He says, Chitram, I'll jump to that in a minute, for a minute. Chitram vataturor mule vriddha shishya guru yuva. He says, what a picture to behold. He says, Chitram. Wow, what a picture. Imagine. In fact, if you look at the picture of Shankara, we have a picture, I have a picture in my home, should bring it. So you have these, and here also these Sanat Kumaras are older, but Shankara's face is also very young. So the teacher is always, it's not as though, you were you had to get old to become a teacher. In fact, the Atma is always depicted to be extremely young. Your understanding is, your nature is changeless, timeless. So that is what is meant by it is. And so, in fact, let's finish the number 3. He says, Chitram vatataror mule. So, the base of the banyan tree are the aged disciples and the Guru is young. Gurostu maunam vyakhyanam shishyastu chinna samshaya. By the exposition of the Guru through silence, the doubts of the thoughtful sages are removed. Because how else to depict? How you cannot say when you say you. And so supposing you're sitting in the class and saying, can you come here? So everybody will look to say, well, who's he pointing out to me? Can you please come here? So that means I'm pointing out to a body. Right? And Swami Dayanand used to joke about it. He says, supposing you say, John, can you please come here? So the others who are not John are just sitting there. Not quietly, this is not me. Not me. John is not there? No, I guess he's not here. And Swamiji says, if I say, you foolish person, come here, everybody would say, is he talking about me? So now I'm talking about your mental state. I don't say John in a name or something. I'll say you who is confused. So you say, yes, you're right, I am a little confused. I don't totally understand it. So it applies to everybody. We're not sure who it is. Atma does not have a form except silence. So the understanding of the Atma, and when it is silence, it is not merely not talking. When you say silence, it means the conscious entity which is silent. I know, I am. This is true for everyone. Satyam Jnanam, Satyam Jnanam, Satchit, silence. So this is what is called Mauna Vyakya. How else to explain it? I cannot put a finger on it. He said, who are you talking about? Silence. Beautiful silence. Uninterrupted. Purnata. Purnavadaf. We'll explain that sometime. Purnamadaf, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate. Purnam. A silence which is complete, without any form. Fullness. No sense of emptiness. That is what is called Mauna Vyakya. And so, Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Varshistante Vasat Rishiganaihi Avritam Brahmanistaihi Acharya Indram Karakalita Chinmudram Anandamurtim Swatmaramam Mudita Vadnam Dakshinamurtam Ide. So that teacher who has the Chinmudra, and we explained the Chinmudra in the last class, where the identity between the Jiva and Ishvara has been made very clear, away from the three other fingers, on connection with these. So Chin Mudra, the hands of this. So the hands of this spiritual teacher are in the form of Chin Mudra, the gesture of identity between Jiva and Ishvara, and whose appearance is joyful, who rejoices in his own self, which is reflected in his pleasant expression. So a silence which is very pleasant, which is self-sufficient, don't need anything, happy, peaceful. So Dakshinamurti is the very essence of this person, who's capable of teaching me through silence our mutual content. The content of Dakshinamurti and the content of the student is the same, which is silence. And the only thing that interrupts the silence are the doubts of the student. Oh, I'm not so sure, I don't know. Doubts. But these Rishiganaihi, Brahmanistaihi are the ones whose doubts have now left. Really, all the thoughts are nothing but an expression of doubts. You are okay the way you are, but you don't think so. You do want to, I want to do something. So why do you want to do something? Aren't you okay? Yes, I'm okay, but I'm not so sure. I want to achieve some things. Doubts. Avidya kama karma, avidya kama karma. Then through avidya, I don't know, then comes some desire, then you go on fulfilling the desire. So that whole silence is broken. And doubts are, is this it? Is this all that I need to do? You're telling me that this is the goal of life, silence? When you come to think about it, Advaya, non-duality, the nature of non-duality is silence. In deep sleep, silence. Any activity is due to doubts. This really is the final thing. You are okay the way you are. You don't need to do anything. You are complete. The silence is the result of all activity. When you go to a pilgrimage and you go to Char Dham and you go to all these peaks of the mountains, then you want to do you go to temples. What culminates there is your eyes close. You really experience your own silence. That's it. The Ishvara appears to you through a satisfied silence. This is the Mahima, this is the Dhyanam of Dakshinamurti that one should do. Anyway, so I'll stop here. We have finished all three of them really. Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Acharya Indram Karakalita Chinmudram Anand. Then we can even finish this number 2. Vata vitapi samipe bhumi bhage nishannam sakala muni jananam jnanadataram arat tribhuvana gurum isham dakshinamurti devam janana marana dukkha cheta daksham namami. I bow to that person who just makes it very clear that this is the final goal of all human beings. What is the final goal of all human beings? To be aware of the beautiful silence which is already their nature. And they don't accept it. They move away from it. This is the janana marana dukkha. You take up, there must be something else. There must be something else. This isn't enough. You have not, this is it. Just look at it and feel it and be in it. No, there must be something else. Okay, fine. Okay, find it. And then you do all kinds of things. But you're still dissatisfied. In the meantime, your body gives in. You have to take another birth. This is what is called janana marana dukkha. So he says, the one who removes daksham. Remember in the last class, we have talked about dakshinamurti. Remember, one of them is who's skilled. Dakshina means a skillful person. So dakshinamurti means the Ishvara's skill in removing my doubts is amazing. I must trust him. Let him lead me. So this is what is called daksham namami, whose knowledge and is the word skill here? It should be there. Yes, who's skilled in lifting us from the sorrow of birth and death. Yes, absolutely. The word daksham means skillful. Because my doubts are so limiting to me. This is the problem. First of all, I don't know, and even when I do know, then my doubts come up. And then this is what's called the emotions have to be kept in touch. Yeah, this is okay, but this is what this is so funny because I often find people who will sing, they'll say, well, what are you teaching? So I teach them about Vedanta. And they somehow find out I've been doing it for a long time. So somehow they get the feeling, they have already concluded that this guy is still searching. He's doing it for a long time. So usually when I meet some stranger, he says, have you listened to this kind of a person? So what can I say? I have to say, I cannot insult him by saying, you know what, I'm no longer looking. No, but I don't want to say that, really? Which person? Oh, you've got to, they'll say, I'll send you an email. Then I have to stop. So I said, you know what, I'm sort of busy, but yeah, one of these days I'll look into it. So this is the thing. We keep on saying, there must be something else. There must be something else. This is not true. Let's try Buddhism. This Hinduism is good and so on, but I think the Buddhism that I understand, they give you instant understanding and instant kind of like a meditation. Vipassana. Swamiji used to say, Swamiji said, listen, I don't usually criticize anybody else or other methods and so on, but I have to tell you, please stay away from Vipassana. And I didn't know what Vipassana was, so they have to tell me. That's complete brainwashing where you cannot think, you just have to be still and so on and so forth. Huh? Shunyam, yes, shunyam. So we keep on looking for different things and so on. So the daksham namami means jarana marana dukkha cheda, one who convinces the most important thing that's keeping me from understanding is my own mind. I am just jumping around like a monkey looking for different things. It's right behind you. You are the very thing you are seeking, you fool. This is what Dakshinamurti is saying. So anyway, I think we have pretty much done all the three, and then we will very quickly do Nidhaye Sarvavidyanam Vishache Bhavaroginam, and then we are done with the second stage, which is Dhyana Shlokas. And so when I come back, so there will be no classes for the next 2 Saturdays because I will be in India. So then after two Tuesdays, then we will meet again, whatever the date is. I'll send you an email to remind you. So then we will finish a couple of Dhyana Shlokas and then get introduced to the main Dakshinamurti Stotram verses itself. So let's just do a short ending prayer. And I think you know all of this, so we can do this together. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityo Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Sorry it took so much time, no time for questions, but I'll be glad to, if you have any, I can sit for a while. Yeah.
It's related. When you were talking about the Dakshinamurti Vigraha, you talked about Maya Shakti.
Correct.
That Nandini represents.
Yeah.
So at the Ishvara level, there is this Maya Shakti, right? But at the Jiva level, there is this ignorance. And due to that, we take this Maya as the real, right? So what is the relationship between Maya Shakti and ignorance?
So the question is, what is I think she's in the front, so I think you'll probably hear the question well. Kumud's question is that what is the difference between the Maya Shakti, which is the Shakti of Ishvara wielding the entire Shrishti, and the ignorance of the individual. The ignorance of the individual is part of the Maya. It's an aspect of the Maya itself. And so in what is explained is that in a magic show, like for example when you are mesmerizing someone, then the ability to mesmerize is the Maya Shakti. And the one because you get mesmerized is the ignorance. You get wielded by the magic and you become a recipient of the magic. And so
it is also due to Maya, then ignorance.
Due to Maya, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, due to Maya. And in fact, one of the things is that the beauty of the creation is, I often look at it this way, that the colors of a painting are the 3 gunas of the Maya Shakti. Sattva guna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna. And in the various combinations of those 3, there is only 3 paints that the Ishvara uses. Those are the 3 gunas. And through this, the enormous creation comes up. And then, of course, the Pancha Mahabhutas are also used as the recipient of the Maya. But then, so there is no Shrishti without Maya. Just like there is no painting without color. You cannot paint without a colorful painting. You cannot do a pencil or something like this. You need to have something to paint. You can have a visualization, but to paint something, you need some samagri. So paint is a samagri. So similarly, to paint the Shrishti, Ishvara uses the ignorance. And it's a very beautiful thing when you think about it, that all the dukkha in life is only make-believe, is only through ignorance only. When the truth is known, it is very, very pleasant. It's not as though the two are the same. They're not. They're not. So one is, so like the rope and the snake. The snake vision is false. The rope vision alone is satyam. So the truth of the entire quest in life is that one is okay, the one, and just the way I am. I don't need anything. I don't even need this body. I don't need the mind. I need nothing. No relationships, no nothing. I'm okay the way I am. This is the end. It's a very pleasant end. There is no creation whatsoever. This so-called creation is nothing but a non-creation. But I don't see it that way. Until then, that I have some dukkha. Once I see the non-reality of the whole thing, then I find I am the only reality. And so that is the sukham.
So that when you remove the ignorance, that means you also understand that this is Ishwara's maya. That
Correct, exactly.
There is only the
There's
truth behind.
Quite right. So this we will study in great depth as part of the Dakshinamurti Stotram. So even the very first one, so all we will do that. Vishwam Darpana Dushyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam. All that we will come up. So that is what the whole thing is all about. Yes, Arvind?
In Mandukya, when we discussed, I think we did with the 3 avastha and all those things.
Correct.
We also correlated Maya and Agyan.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah. The question is relative to the another book that we are studying, which is Mandukya Upanishad. There the approach is through the avastha. There are 3 different stages of it, but it is all due to the Maya Shakti. Yeah, due to ignorance. Yeah.
So this is new to know about the Vigraha is black.
Mm-hmm.
When we went to South India, and one Shilpi was doing the work, I asked the same question. His answer was like, oh, because we have the supply from certain mountain which is always available in black, if you want white, then you have to go to North Gujarat, North India.
Yeah.
I mean, that was his answer.
Yeah, that is also true. That is true. But the thing is that when you have an important temple that has to be done, because there are so many temples and you just do the best you can.
Yeah.
But if you have a major temple that has to be done, so then the Shastra of temple building has to be followed. So there is a Nitya Shastra, there is music Shastra, there is health Ayurveda. So similarly there is Shilpa Shastra. So the Shilpa Shastra means the very Shastra which is written down. There must be somewhere. I mean, I haven't studied it, but it's written down. So there it is said that the real ones should be dark in color. Yes, for the reason that we mentioned. And also another thing that I will discuss it perhaps some other time because of lack of time, is that a temple is actually in the form of the 5 koshas of the human being, where the sanctum sanctorum is the innermost, which is the darkest, and this is where it is, you cannot see anything until the pujari, and so the stone cannot be bright by itself. It should be dark, it has to be pointed out. So that's all part of the Shilpa Shastra. Yeah. Okay, we'll see you so in 3 weeks or so. Okay.